Gravity Falls first aired in 2012 on Disney Channel and Disney XD, and the show followed the adventures of twins Dipper and Mabel Pines as they visit their great uncle Stan and stay at his Mystery Shack tourist trap for the summer. They find a journal documenting mysterious events that happened in the town, and things pop off from there. There were even secret codes hidden in each episode for superfans to theorize over. This show had me in its grip when it first aired, and it's been 12 years since the series premiered, so now is the time to go back through the entire series to see if it's the nostalgia talking or if Gravity Falls is really that good. Season 1, Tourist Trapped. Dipper and Mabel Pines arrive in Gravity Falls to spend the summer with their grunkle Stan, who runs the mysterious Mystery Shack. While exploring the woods, Dipper stumbles upon a strange journal marked with the number 3, filled with information about the supernatural and bizarre things happening in the town. Mabel, who's always looking for fun, begins dating a boy who turns out to be a group of gnomes disguised as a human, which he's not even good at that. They all think he's a zombie anyway. The gnomes want to make Mabel their queen, leading to a wild chase through the forest, and in the end, Mabel rejects the gnomes, and Dipper and Mabel decide to keep the journal secrets between them. The episode sets the tone for the series and introduces the journal, which becomes central to the show's mysteries. You get a good sense for Dipper and Mabel's dynamic between each other, and I think the introduction of the book is enough to pique anyone's interest in where that will go next. The Legend of the Goble. The twins accompany Grunkle Stan on a fishing trip, but they quickly abandon him to search for the legendary lake monster, the Goble. After hearing about it from Old Man McGucket. Right now, he's just painted as the town's crazy man, but he's important. We'll come back to him later. Seuss decides to join the twins on their journey, and Seuss is a worker at the Mystery Shack. He's friends with Great Uncle Stan, and he loves hanging out with Dipper and Mabel on their adventures. He's usually a screw-up and pretty dumb, but he also can be extremely useful and smart at times. It just depends on the day. They all set out on a homemade boat to capture a photo of the Goble for a cash prize, no less. Their adventure leads them to a thrilling encounter with what appears to be the Goble, but they eventually discover that it's actually a giant mechanical recreation built by Old Man McGucket for attention. The episode ends with the group realizing that sometimes it's the time spent with family that matters more than proving something exists. How touching. Headhunters. Dipper and Mabel decide to help Grunkle Stan revive the Mystery Shack's failing wax museum by unveiling a new wax figure of Stan himself. However, when Stan's wax head is found decapitated, the twins set out to solve the mystery. They soon discover that the other wax figures in the museum have come to life and are seeking revenge for being neglected over the years. Dipper and Mabel battle the wax figures in a showdown fit for a king, eventually emerging victorious. The episode delves into the town's strange history and introduces the idea that the supernatural elements in Gravity Falls are more than just oddities. They're dangerous. The hand that rocks the Mabel. Mabel attracts the attention of the town's young psychic prodigy, Gideon Gleeful, who becomes infatuated with her. Dipper is suspicious of Gideon's intentions, but Mabel initially enjoys the attention. Mabel tries to let Gideon down gently. He becomes vengeful and uses his psychic powers, enhanced by an amulet. Dipper confronts Gideon, leading to a psychic showdown in which the twins barely escape alive. They take him down and destroy his amulet, but I got a feeling this isn't the last we're gonna see of Gideon Gleeful. This episode introduces Gideon as a significant antagonist who's obsessed with the Mystery Shack and the Pines family throughout the series. The Inconveniencing. Eager to prove himself to Wendy, an employee at the Mystery Shack who Dipper has had a crush on since he met her a few episodes ago, Dipper and Mabel tag along with her and her teenage friends to explore an abandoned convenience store known to be haunted. Once Dipper helps everyone get inside, he continues to try to act older than he is to impress Wendy, claiming he's 13 when he's really 12. The group soon encounters angry ghosts of the store's former owners, who despise teenagers. The ghosts take control of the situation, forcing Dipper to confess his real age and love of childhood things to save everyone from death. Meanwhile, Mabel experiences hallucinations after consuming expired candy, adding to the episode's surreal humor. It's revealed that the former owners of the convenience store both died of of heart attacks when a bunch of teenagers popped up and started rapping in front of their store, which is why they don't like teenagers. Once Dipper lets the ghost know that he's only 12 and not 13, they chill out and let everyone go home safely. This episode firmly establishes Dipper's crush on Wendy, which is a recurring plot throughout the series. Dipper vs. Manliness. After a failed attempt to assert himself in front of Wendy, Dipper becomes self-conscious about his masculinity. He stumbles upon a group of manly minotaurs in the woods who agree to teach him how to be a real man through a series of grueling trials. Meanwhile, Mabel tries to help Grunkle Stan win over a waitress at a local diner. Dipper eventually realizes that being true to himself is more important than fitting into traditional ideas of manliness. The episode ends with Dipper standing up to the minotaurs and proving that inner strength is what really matters. Oh yeah, and Stan eventually wins the girl over, but then she doesn't stop calling him and he regrets everything. Double Dipper. Grunkle Stan throws a big party at the Mystery Shack, and Dipper sees it as the perfect opportunity to spend time with Wendy. To increase his chances, he discovers a mysterious copier in the shack that can create duplicates of anything, including himself. Dipper makes multiple copies of himself to help him navigate the social scene of life, but the clones quickly develop their own personalities and agendas, leading to chaos. Mabel, meanwhile, enters a contest to become the party's party queen, competing against her arch nemesis Pacifica Northwest, the rich, bratty girl of the town. Dipper realizes that the only time he successfully talked to Wendy in a positive way was when he wasn't trying that hard, so he decides to rip up his list of plans to talk to Wendy and just be himself. This episode highlights Dipper's insecurities and his growing feelings for Wendy, while also touching on the dangers of trying to control too many things. Irrational Treasure. During Gravity Falls Pioneer Day celebration, Dipper and Mabel uncover a conspiracy that the town's supposed founder, Nathaniel Northwest, was a fraud. Their investigation leads them to discover a hidden underground chamber filled with secrets, including a message revealing the true founder, Quentin Tremblay, who was trapped in suspended animation for decades. Tremblay, who faked his own death, turns out to be the real founder. He was frozen in peanut brittle this entire time, and the twins break him out and he's still alive. He helps them escape the dirty cops who are trying to stop the twins from uncovering the truth. During this episode, Mabel's quirky personality plays a key role in solving the mystery, reinforcing the show's theme that being different is a strength. The Time Traveler's Pig. At the annual town fair, Dipper is trying to impress Wendy by winning her a prize. He messes up, gives her a black eye, and Robbie comes in to save the day. Robbie is one of her teenage friends who has also been crushing on her. Later on, when Dipper discovers a time traveler named Blendon Blandon with a time travel device, he snatches it from him and uses it repeatedly to go back in time and fix his mistake. But each attempt creates new problems that he is struggling to solve. No matter what he does, he always hurts Wendy and never wins her the prize. During all this, Maple wins a pet pig, Waddles, and becomes attached to him. In every timeline that Dipper loses, Mabel wins the pig. Dipper finally finds a timeline that would fix everything, allow him to win the prize for Wendy, and embarrass Robbie. But in this timeline, Mabel does not win Waddles. He finally has to choose between his crush on Wendy or Mabel's happiness, and he ultimately chooses Mabel, which solidifies their sibling bond. This episode not only showcases how good of siblings Dipper and Mabel are, but it also introduces time travel, which becomes significant later in the series. Fight Fighters. After Robbie challenges Dipper to a fight over Wendy, which is ridiculous. Robbie is a teenager, Dipper is 12 years old. What is this? Dipper panics and uses an arcade machine's secret code to bring Rumble McSkirmish, a video game fighting character, to life. Dipper lies to Rumble and tells him that Robbie murdered his father and that's why he needs revenge. So Rumble agrees to help. Dipper asks Rumble to go scare Robbie and not actually hurt him. But as soon as Rumble sees Robbie, he's on the loose and can't be stopped and is actually trying to kill Robbie. Dipper stops Rumble and reveals that he lied about Robbie killing his dad, and then Rumble realizes that Dipper is the bad guy who he has to defeat. Dipper accepts his fate like a man and allows himself to be beat shitless until he runs out of life. This causes Rumble to be sucked back into the video game nothingness world and everyone is safe. This episode is yet another issue caused by Dipper's crush for Wendy. He needs to stop stop trying so hard, Little Dipper. Dipper feels insecure about discovering that Mabel is slightly taller than him, leading him to obsess over his height. When he finds a crystal in the journal that can change the size of any object, he uses it to grow a couple inches taller than Mabel. Mabel eventually figures out about the device, and they fight over it while using it against each other. However, Gideon discovers the crystal and all of its powers and uses it to make sure Dipper and Mabel are both shrunk while he's attempting to steal the mystery shack from Stan. The twins work together and end up getting the device back from Gideon, and they end up defeating him before he can do any more damage. This episode does a good job of showing Gideon's ongoing feud with the Pines family, and it does a great job of reinforcing the sibling bond between Mabel and Dipper. No matter how much they fight, they can always work it out and come back together. Good shit. Summerween. Gravity Falls celebrates Summerween, a Halloween-like holiday celebrated in the middle of the summer, including watermelon jack-o'-lanterns, and I've always wanted to carve one of these in real life. Dipper is feeling too old for trick-or-treating, and he wants to act more mature to impress Wendy. Of course he does, but Mabel wants to enjoy the holiday like they always have together. Then, a monster called the Summerween Trickster shows up at their door. They refuse to give him candy, and then he threatens to eat them all alive unless they collect 500 pieces of candy by the time the last jack-o'-lantern blows out at the end of the night. The group is then forced to trick-or-treat for their lives. They do end up collecting the candy, but Dipper loses it all in an attempt to impress Wendy yet again. What a bozo. They still manage to narrowly escape the trickster, who is actually revealed to be made of discarded Halloween candy that nobody ever wanted. The episode ends with the twins enjoying Summerween together, and Dipper learned yet again that he should love and enjoy time with his sister. Boss Mabel. After Grunkle Stan mocks Mabel for being too nice to run a business, she challenges him to a bet. She will take over the mystery shack for a couple of days, and if she makes more money than him, she gets to be the boss permanently. Mabel turns the shack into a fun and friendly place, attracting crowds, but her generosity starts to cost her. And during all this, Grunkle Stan is actually off on a game show, and he's winning until he's not. In the end, Mabel learns that being a boss requires tough decisions, and she gives up her role, realizing that Stan's methods, though harsh, are necessary. A tale as old as time, eh? Give me a boss's paycheck without being a boss, you know what I mean? Bottomless Pit. The Pines family, along with Seuss, falls into a bottomless pit in the woods after throwing unwanted items into it. Don't litter. While they wait for an uncertain landing, they pass time by telling each other bizarre stories. Eventually, they land back at the top of the pit, leaving the question of whether the pit is truly bottomless. I don't really like episodes like this. I feel like a bunch of different shows have this kind of episode, and I'm not really a big fan of these kinds of episodes, but hey, it was fine. The Deep End. When the local pool opens for the summer, the twins and their friends head there to cool off. Mabel discovers a merman named Mermando trapped in the pool's deep end and falls for him. Of course she does. She devises a plan to return him to the ocean despite the challenges. And during all this, Dipper becomes obsessed with being an assistant lifeguard so he can hang out with Wendy all day because she's the lifeguard. In the end, Dipper must sacrifice his job to help Mabel help Mermando escape. And after everything is said and done, Mabel and Dipper help Mermando escape successfully. Dipper loses his job, and it turns out that Wendy does as well for stealing too many snacks, so everything's chill anyway. Dipper learns yet another lesson about trying too hard to impress someone. This has got to be the third or fourth time that Dipper is about to blow off his sister just to try to impress Wendy. Even though he's always chosen to help Mabel so far, he has to stop being so selfish as a first reaction to things. Carpet Diem. Dipper is fed up with Mabel and her friends always having sleepovers in their shared bedroom, and he finally wants his own room. The twins end up discovering a hidden room in the mystery shack that contains an old carpet among other strange oddities. In fact, you can even see Stan picking up a pair of glasses and trying to hide them for some reason. Grunkle Stan decides decides it would be fun to make Dipper and Mabel fight for the room, so the twins start trying to wait on Stan hand and foot to impress him. The twins eventually find out that stepping on the carpet while charging up some electricity with your feet causes them to body swap. They use this to their advantage and try to sabotage each other's chance at winning the room by being outwardly rude to Grunkle Stan. Seuss accidentally switches bodies with the family pig Waddles, and then all of Mabel's friends also start switching bodies with everyone else. It becomes a madhouse, and eventually Stan decides to give Dipper, well, Mabel as Dipper, the room, and everyone manages to reverse the effects of the rug, and they all end up in their own body. The episode ends with Dipper turning to wish his sister sweet dreams in his new room, and he notices she isn't there and gets very sad. Mabel tries saying goodnight to Dipper as well, and gets upset as well. Dipper ends up coming upstairs and asking Mabel to have a sleepover, which is so goddamn cute. Their brother-sister bond is one of my favorite parts of the show, and it's consistently there the entire series. Boys crazy. Mabel and her friends are going to see their favorite boy band several times tonight, but when they get to the stadium and tickets are sold out, they try to sneak backstage to meet the band anyway, and they end up discovering that several times is actually made up of cloned boys who are being exploited by their manager. I firmly believe that this is the true origin story of NSYNC. Mabel decides to break them out of their cages and take them home with her, where she eventually decides to let them free like wild creatures. During all this, Dipper is convinced that Robbie used a special mind control song to brainwash Wendy into taking him back. Stan helps Dipper figure things out, and they eventually figure out that if you play the CD Robbie had the song on in reverse, you hear a message, something along the lines of, "You're under my control." Shouldn't Dipper and Stan now be brainwashed after listening to that? Dipper ends up exposing Robbie when he's with Wendy at Lookout Point, about to make a move on her. She breaks up with him on the spot, and then Dipper immediately starts hitting on her. Great move, buddy. She gets pissed at all of guys, because why wouldn't she, and walks off on her own. The episode ends with Dipper feeling increasingly frustrated about his unreturned crush. Land before swine. Grunkle Stan is tasked with watching Waddles and making sure he doesn't go outside. So what does Stan do? He puts him outside. Waddles immediately gets kidnapped by a pterodactyl, and the Pines family, along with Seuss, ventures into a dangerous underground realm to rescue him. An old man McGucket was actually waiting at the entrance to the cave, so he came along for the adventure as well. After exploring for a bit, they eventually find Waddles in a pterodactyl nest, and they attempt to save him, but the pterodactyl has different ideas. Eventually, Stan and Waddles are left alone to fend for themselves, and Stan ends up caring about Waddles and his safety, despite viewing him as more of a nuisance in the beginning of the episode. Another thing I liked about this episode was when Stan lied in the beginning of the episode about what happened to Waddles. He claimed he fought off the pterodactyl to save Waddles, which he didn't. And at the end of the episode, he actually has to do all the things he lied about to save Waddles and fight off the pterodactyl. The episode ends with everyone escaping safely and Stan admitting that Waddles is part of the family and their bond is forever changed. Oh yeah, and Old Man McGucket got eaten by a baby dinosaur, then ate his way out of his stomach. Dreamscapers. Gideon is still determined to take control of the Mystery Shack, and he is trying with all his might to get control of Stan's deed, which he keeps in a safe. It was revealed once before, but Gideon has journal number 2, and he uses a secret chant from inside the journal to summon Bill Cipher, a powerful dream demon. He will be important later. Gideon tasks Bill Cipher with invading Stan's mind to steal the code for the safe so Gideon could get the deed to the shack. Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss oversee Gideon doing this and use their journal to go into Stan's mind and fight Bill themselves. While going through his mind, the crew sees a bunch of Stan's old memories, and Dipper actually sneaks off into a memory where Stan is talking about him. He mishears what Stan is saying and thinks Stan hates him, when in reality, Stan admits he's just being hard on Dipper because he doesn't want him to get bullied the way he did when he was a kid. They eventually fight it out with Bill, and they're able to stop him from getting the code. But before he leaves, Bill warns them that everything they love will change and something terrible is coming in their future. They all exit Stan's mind, and before they can even have a second to breathe, Gideon blows a giant hole in the shack with TNT and steals the deed right out from under their noses. He then calls his dad in with a wrecking ball, and they start destroying destroying the shack, and the episode comes to a close. This episode's amazing because even if you didn't know it yet, this episode introduces Bill Cipher, who is the big bad of the series. It's also crazy to see the Mystery Shack getting smashed to bits. That is their home. Gideon Rises, the season 1 finale. After Gideon successfully takes over the Mystery Shack, the Pines family is forced to leave town and live with Seuss's mom. Gideon gets everyone in town to show up to the Mystery Shack grand closing ceremony and offers them all free pins while they're there. And during all this, Old Man McGucket can be seen building a giant Gideon robot. He reveals that he's gonna turn it into a giant Gideon theme park. During the big reveal from Gideon, Dipper, Mabel, Seuss, and Stan can be seen in the crowd in disguise. They storm the stage and it doesn't work out for them at all, and they're told to leave by the police. Wendy tells the group that she has to leave town and go work at her cousin's lumber mill because there's no job for her here in Gravity Falls. Dipper is obviously pissed, and the rest of the crew isn't happy either. They go back to Seuss's house, and Grunkle Stan calls Mabel and Dipper's parents, and they decide it's best to send the kids home. Meanwhile, Gideon is flipping through journal number 2, and Gideon's father comes in and says he should be celebrating Gideon Land, not flipping through the journal. And Gideon goes on to explain that the unknown author of these journals knew that if all 3 of them came back together, it would lead to unimaginable power. Gideon then reveals that the codes and ciphers in the journal revealed that the final journal may be hidden in the Mystery Shack itself, revealing why Gideon really wanted the land in the first place. Meanwhile, everyone's back at Seuss's house, and Grunkle Stan tells Dipper and Mabel that they have to leave, and he hands them their bus tickets. Dipper decides that enough is enough and sets off with Mabel to get the deed back from Gideon themselves. They trick the gnomes from the first episode into helping them break into the shack and capture Gideon, until the gnomes eventually turn on them because they lied to them. The gnomes end up restraining Dipper and Mabel, and Dipper drops his journal and Gideon snatches it. The gnomes then drop Dipper and Mabel off somewhere far deep in the forest and then ditch them. Dipper feels like he's nothing without his journal and that he could help no one, and him and Mabel head to the bus station to feed it to leave town. Gideon gets home and finally looks at Dipper's journal and is completely pissed off when he sees a number 3 on the front of it, thinking he only had to find 2 of them. Stan is chilling, feeling sorry for himself, and he eventually figures out that his hearing aid has been reacting the entire episode to the pin Gideon gave him, and that the pin is actually a microphone used for surveillance to track the entire town. As Dipper and Mabel are leaving town on the bus, they see the Gideon bot rise, and they tell the bus driver to stop the bus, and then they find out the bus driver is none other than Seuss. Gideon chases them with the robot, they crash the bus but they escape, and then Gideon hassles Dipper to give over the first journal. Dipper doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Gideon then immediately grabs Mabel and says she's gonna be the queen, and Dipper has finally had enough. He jumps into the Gideon bot and starts fist fighting Gideon himself. The bot eventually falls off a cliff, and Dipper and Mabel are saved by Mabel's trusty grappling hook, which she kept bringing up the entire episode but was never useful until now. Gideon then draws an entire crowd and claims that Dipper and Mabel tried blowing up his robot and killing him. And just as the cops are about to arrest the twins, Stan shows up and reveals that Gideon has been tracking the entire town with his pins this whole time. Gideon gets arrested, and just before they take him away to the Slammers, Stan shakes him out and takes the deed back while also sneakily taking the second journal. Stan also borrows journal 3 from Dipper, and things are starting to seem a little suspicious. Dipper realizes he doesn't need the journal to save people, and that he actually stopped the robot all by himself without the journal. Later that night, Stan enters a hidden laboratory behind the vending machine in the shack, where it's revealed that he actually has journal number 1. What the hell? Stan has all 3 journals now. And this is goddamn crazy because this entire series, Stan has denied the existence of any paranormal stuff in the city. He said it's all fake, it's all garbage. Liar! Stan puts all 3 of the books together and opens them all to the same page to reveal some giant blueprint schematic for a giant machine. It's revealed Stan has already built the machine, and he uses the book to help him activate it. And the episode ends with a giant light and a bunch of crazy symbols lighting up this room, and Stan saying, here we go. It doesn't tell you if he's good, if he's evil, what he's doing, what the hell's happening. It just leaves you, and the season's over. Something I really liked about this episode that was a tiny little detail, when Mabel and Dipper are getting ripped apart by the giant Gideon robot, they hang on to each other for as long as they possibly can. They hold each other's hands, and their sister-brother bond is so beautiful. I fucking love it. There are so many different little touches put into season 1 of this show that you can really tell it was a labor of love. People who made it had a lot of passion for storytelling. The writers had everything planned out as far back as episode 1, where you can actually see Blendin Blavin, or Blavin Blendin, whatever the hell his name is. You can see the time traveler in the background of episode 1 cleaning up the mistakes Dipper and Mabel made in the time travel episode. There's even hidden codes throughout the entire series in the intros, outros, and background of different set pieces. This show has so many things I love just in the first season. The brother-sister bond is out of this world. I've almost never seen a stronger bond in any cartoon. And all of the characters, Grunkle Stan, Seuss, Wendy, Robbie, even Waddles, all of them are unforgettable. And the story having a clear direction from the start helps it feel really tight narratively, unlike most kid shows. Gravity Falls Season 1 is definitely an S-tier show. And if you enjoyed me going through Season 1, wait until you hear about Season 2. I will be releasing coverage of Season 2 of Gravity Falls and connecting parts 1 and 2 into one giant mega cut. It's taking me longer than anticipated to film the voiceovers and edit these videos, so I wanted to get them out in season chunks so I didn't go too long without releasing a video. Alright everyone, thanks for listening.